Alright, YouTube, just a brief reminder here. I will be live streaming tonight after the third presidential debate. A nice long live stream, probably over an hour. Maybe over 2 hours, honestly. It really depends on what happens. If it's boring, which I don't expect is going to be the case, then I'll spend less time on it. If it's a real whopper, and Trump and Clinton basically spend the entire time attacking each other, which is at this point fairly likely, and the gloves are off, it'll take longer to analyze. I will be using notes, in full disclosure here, as opposed to all of my routine videos where I never do. Because if I'm going to talk for that long, I'll analyze for 20 to 30 minutes before I get to any comments. I won't be looking at the comments that people are leaving until I state openly that I'm done analyzing what's happened. My belief is that Trump will do better at this debate than the last. I think he's going to hammer Hillary Clinton, especially in connection. I think you're going to see tonight at least several examples from the O'Keefe video leaks from WikiLeaks brought up. And I think that that will shove her down a notch as far as her campaign goes. I expect that O'Keefe, now that he's unshackled from the news cycle as far as debates go, fairly soon he'll probably release his infamous Hillary the Racist tape, if indeed he has such a tape. And so far I've got no reason to doubt him, because it looks like there was a fairly thorough investigation going on. You can see right now, by the way, the left is in full damage control. I say the word left very loosely, because Clinton is not a leftist, she's just a Democrat. Part of that mediocre neoliberal corporate machine. Has nothing in common with a hippie. Has nothing in common with like a Bernie Sanders socialist, other than, agrees on some wars rather than others. Decided killing a few tens of thousands of Afghanians was okay, but Sanders disagreed with her on killing 500,000 Iraqis, I guess, so he's got that in his favor, I suppose. But you can see the biggest damage control they're doing right now, and don't think that I didn't catch this. And I was going to do a separate video on this, but I'll just mention it for you that are going to be watching the debate. You're probably going to be commenting on it afterwards. Keep a close lookout. What are they talking about? Voter fraud versus electoral fraud. They are attempting to switch the dynamic, move the goalpost of the public debate, that is. And I believed this was likely to be their next strategy. It was a fairly clear-cut reasoning behind why they would do so. They're trying to convince people that any mention of voter fraud is specifically about, for instance, an illegal immigrant voting or a felon voting or something. Things that people, generally speaking, independent voters especially, don't believe occurs on a regular basis. They're technically correct. You should start using the term electoral fraud to denote the difference between what O'Keefe has investigated and what most people consider voter fraud at large, which, again, it doesn't involve coercion specifically by a campaign. It just involves people who are dead voting, people who are, immigrants that aren't legally allowed to vote voting without showing ID. There's a big difference between the two. That is their damage control tactic. It will remain the tactic as long as rigging the election specifically is in public discourse. So keep an eye out for that. I bet you'll see it. Now that you've been told that they're going to try to skew the difference between the two and play it off as well, it's rare, it only happens once in a while. That's the strategy that I predict that they'll continue to use throughout comments that'll be left for the next couple of days all over the internet. It's obvious they're in full meltdown mode right now. The Democratic Party is in an absolute panic because even the mainstream media, the legacy media, had to report on what O'Keefe had dropped. While they may softball it, they may try to question its veracity and say, oh, well, O'Keefe, you got charged with a crime a decade ago. It's not working, and Clinton is aware of it not working. She's more full of shit than her campaign bus. She knows that she's been caught out and that it's not looking good for her right now. You can look at this debate for her really to try to take Trump down a peg. It's not clear, though, that there are enough so-called scandals on the Trump ticket in the public consciousness right now with all of these leaks for her to really exploit. I predict that Trump will come out on top more handily than last time around, which means that the general public, even through the legacy media's own polling, I predict we'll see a Trump win, and I think it will propel him to a victory come November. I think people are billing this as his last shot. And he is going to take a really good shot at Hillary Clinton at this debate. So that's my prediction anyway. Could be totally wrong. Could be that he comes up on stage, stumbles around with his words, falls over, has a stroke, and Hillary Clinton just sits there laughing and while he's shitting his pants. But then again, I suppose that most people are anticipating something roughly opposite of this. People are still hoping that Hillary Clinton will shit her pants up on stage. I don't, by the way, think that that's going to happen because if she had a shitting problem, she'd have some sort of bag attached to her asshole so she could just shit down her pants leg, and people would call you a conspiracy theorist for noticing a slight miscolored blotch on her leg, perhaps. But yeah, it's not looking good because when Trump comes out on stage, one of the big things I expect him to attack her on is, hey, I said that the election would have a lot of fraud in it. And now we've got these videos showing that, yeah, there's a lot of fraud potentially in our election. How are you going to fucking respond? And she probably will be at a loss for words because I think she and other Democratic operatives know that O'Keefe probably has a lot more material. Which means if they're not very, very careful with how they play this off, they could get caught in an even worse lie, especially at the debate because it involves Hillary Clinton herself. And so she's got to be very, very careful. She's going to be tiptoeing around this issue. She's going to be walking on eggshells most of the night. I expect him to go whole hog in attacking her. I expect him to reference draining the swamp and lump her into the swamp with the rest of the career politicians. Some of his more effective lines of attack he will probably echo from the last debate, and also term limits for Congress, ethics reform, and so forth. And then he'll make the final argument of differentiating himself from the political class, and I think it'll work. I think that a lot of people will be receptive to that message. I think the orange Hitler, Trump is a racist, Trump will start World War III thing is losing its dominance ultimately in the public discourse. I think that with Hillary's emails and with some of the things that she said, increasingly it's Hillary Clinton that's seen as the World War III candidate. That's about all. Peace out.